You're listening to the Otis Jiry channel. I have a very strange curse, but I think I'm making the best of it. By Matt DYMERSKI, narrated by Otis Jiry. You could say I've always been a bit of a miser. The thing is, it's not money that I pinch, it's time. Ever since I was a boy, I've made it a priority to spend my time as efficiently as possible. Build a sandcastle for 5 minutes, play 2 rounds of tag in 10 minutes, rest 3 minutes. Fun complete, time for chores. Needless to say, the other kids found me rather odd, but I didn't let that stop me. Once I was a little older, I got a job as soon as I could and poured all my time into working. With the inherent ethic that I had, it was easy to impress my managers. Even at my young age, I was surely in line for a promotion. Except I worked day in and day out, and the first promotion came and went. They gave it to the new guy who laughed a lot, talked loudly and inappropriately, and went out for drinks with him often. No big deal, I thought. It was an obvious case of favoritism. Makes sense. I'll wait for the next. Of course, as we all know, the Depression hit and the promotions stopped being a thing. I took a second job at a deli to increase my chances of getting somewhere and began working 80 hours a week, all with the extreme efficiency I'd always applied to everything in my life. I was slowly getting more and more tired, yes, but I often got impressed comments from my managers. Years went by, as we all know, and the economy never got better. Still, life had to go on eventually, and promotions began happening again as those higher up moved on in various ways. I was passed over again several times at both jobs. A cold bitterness began gnawing at the back of my tired eyes as I hustled and bustled each day. I could blame someone, perhaps. I could be angry or resentful like my coworkers, or I could work even harder. I began working overtime at both jobs and sleeping less. To say I was dead tired would be an understatement, but nobody noticed, given my carefully calculated work habits and efficiency. Then it happened. "Keep this up, and you're next in line for a promotion," my manager said offhandedly on one chilly Friday evening. I smiled and nodded, and secretly burned with hope and rage. It was what I wanted, but how could I possibly keep this up? I could feel my body and mind falling apart as the exhaustion deepened in every fiber and nerve. A customer overheard the exchange. "You look tired," the old woman said, coming up to the deli counter. I looked down at her, hunched and wizened. She looked far too old to be wandering about on her own. She was dressed in a distinctive foreign style, but I couldn't quite pin down which one. She turned her milky blue eyes up at me and held out her hand. "Take this. Does me no good now. No children, and not long for this world. You seem like a nice young man." I took the object from her, a small green gem, maybe half an inch across, cut with many facets. It glittered darkly in the store's light. I thought I saw a small pulsing object embedded within, but it might have just been a trick of the internal reflections. "I can't take this," I told her, eyes wide. "It's against company policy." "Not worth any money," she said. "You can take it. It helps you." "Helps me?" The skin around her mouth was the color and consistency of aged parchment, and I stared as it moved. Her lips curled up in a weak smile. "Tell it what you want, then make cut in your skin and put it inside." I recoiled. "That's disgusting." She squeezed my hand around the gem, smiled one more time, and then hobbled off. Desperation can do odd things to a man. It can take away his fear and give him a false bravery. I stared at the gem for the next few days, mesmerized by its emerald inner glow and by the possibility of her claims. I washed it with rubbing alcohol once or twice, just to make sure it was clean. Had it been inside someone else before? I put the gem away, intending to sell it, until a comment from my other boss set me off. "Keep up the hours, and you'll go places." He meant it in good faith, but I could only nod, my heart burning. How could I possibly keep up extreme hours at both jobs? I went home in an exhausted rage and got a knife. I chose a spot on the inside of my arm, in the meat just past the elbow, and made an incision. I thrust the gem inside, shivered at the odd feeling, then stitched it all up. I passed out in my bed, my arm licking spots of red along my sheets. Of course, I felt like an idiot when I finally woke up. Not only had I cut a hole in my arm and put a strange object inside, I'd forgotten to set an alarm, and I was 3 hours late for my shift. I dressed and hurried over, only to stop dead in my tracks outside the store. Through the window, I saw someone already there handling my tasks. It was me, another me. I stared down at my arm, where dark emerald veins pulsed around the gem I'd made part of me. Had I just gotten so tired that I'd lost my mind? Or was I really seeing another me working in my place? What did that mean for me? Where would the other me sleep? Where would he live? Was he aware that he was a duplicate? I could work both jobs now, but share the expenses? Pay for food for 2 people? The gem had been trying to help, as the old woman had said, but that goodwill was misguided in the face of cold, hard economics. My heart raced the entire day as I waited. I knew what I had to do, and I knew how to do it. I'd seen enough movies. Duplications like this always ended in murder. Perhaps I was jumping the gun by going immediately for violence, but I only had one chance. As soon as he realized I existed, he would be on guard for this because he was me and he knew my thoughts. I waited in the shower behind the curtain. I knew myself, so I knew he would come in and nervously eye the closed curtains as he always did. I never really thought someone was behind it, but God, what if there was? I always slid it open before I brushed my teeth just to make sure. This time, he finally found something. I leapt forward with the hammer as he pulled back the curtains, and his forehead crumpled in and around the metal head. He fell to the floor, twitching and staring up at me in confusion, but a few more squelching blows put a stop to that. I dragged his body to the loose floorboards under my kitchen area and hid him in the 4-foot-high crawl space I'd found underneath. A few chemicals I'd learned of on the internet would take care of the smell, and that was that. Except for the bloodstain on the bathroom floor and the splatter on the curtain, which I threw out, there was no evidence my duplicate had ever existed. I scrubbed away at the stain, took a shower, and then passed out, relieved. I awoke before my alarm at 6:59, just in time to see another me appear in the other half of the bed. He didn't stand a chance. I grabbed the hammer from the nightstand and slammed it into him repeatedly before he even had a moment to comprehend what was happening. "No, wait!" He never got to finish his sentence. His body joined the first under the floor. I worked my 2 shifts that day and then went home, realizing that I had a bigger problem on my hands. I tried to pry the emerald out of my arm, but the strange veins had hardened into my skin, and I couldn't even cut the thing out without taking off my whole arm. Just as I had expected. At 7 in the morning, a third me appeared. This was apparently going to happen every single morning for the rest of my life. I'd wanted to be in 2 places at once and do more than humanly possible, and the throbbing gem in my arm had given me that capability. I just had to think outside the box. It took a while to come around to what I knew I would have to do. For several months, I murdered myself each morning and then went to work, a little more haunted and tired. The screams got me every time. They were my screams. And how did I know I wouldn't be the one waking up with a hammer to the head next morning? I tried not to think about it, even as I created a more efficient means of instant death for my duplicates. A few months after that, I ran out of willpower. I quit my jobs. At first, it was because I had a sub-basement full to the brim with corpse versions of me, enough that they couldn't fit into the floorboards anymore. Then it was because I was selling the duplicate set of clothes that came with them each day, and living off that money. I invested in a nice suit, went to sleep in it, woke up, murdered myself very carefully, and then sold the new suit to someone else. When my buyers started asking questions, I had to go legitimate and open a business. Only I didn't sell suits. I didn't have enough inventory for that. I could only produce 1 set of clothes a day, and that would never be enough. So I innovated. I already worked at the deli, so I used that experience. Now, I run the most popular butcher shop on the west side. You should come by and check us out sometime. We're having a sale. The best cuts are half off, and the meat is sourced entirely locally.